Hi team, this is Chris Abraham from Gohacademy. Today I want to talk about the new general curriculum exam, the new general curriculum mtel 78. This is a really important test that's going to impact teachers for the next decade that nobody is talking about. And we really should be talking about this exam. This is really going to impact teachers, so it's very important. I want to talk about it, and it's especially important now for those teachers that still haven't completed the O3. Because if you don't complete the O3 exam, you're going to be left with taking this new one. And there's some very different elements. So let's just start here. They announced this. They've been announcing this for a long time. I think back in 2019 to definitely 2020, before the pandemic was happening, they were announcing it. But then it got delayed, and then it got pushed back, and then delayed again. And then it was supposed to come out in 2022, but then they pushed it back even further. So this has been around. People have known about it, and it's finally looks like it's going to happen. It looks like it's going to happen in August of 2023. So right now, it is Memorial Day weekend, and that's about 3 months away. So teachers have about 3 months to take this test. This is the current O3 test that's being retired before they have to take this new test that's starting up August 21st. So you have a little time to finish these exams. The multi-subject, that's the one involving language arts, science, and history. And then there's a separate math. And then the new test is going to be structured differently. And there's a couple of characteristics of this new test that we're going to talk about in this short video that I think are really important. You need to know what is coming so you can decide if you want to finish this or not. And I think a lot of teachers out there that watch this, they're going to want to finish the O3 before the 78 happens. But let's just take a look here. It says here that these two exams, which have been around for over 10 years, are being retired in about 3 months. And starting August 21st, these two new exams are coming. And these new exams are going to be restructured. The old exam had this structure where it had the multi-subject test. That is the language arts, ELA, science, and history and social science. That test was all lumped into one. And it had a math subtest, and that was sort of just math. And this structure here, 55, 45, this was challenging for teachers. The way this was set up, if you've taken these exams, you've heard of these exams, this was a really tough exam to pass. You would need about 4 hours for both of these. And I would say 90% of the teachers needed 4 hours for both. Just because of the questions and there's a lot of content you have to do with this one, and the math, you really had to get into those concepts. So it had a lot of stuff in it, okay? And it would take about 4 hours for each one. Now, the new test has a different structure. What the new test is going to do is instead of breaking it down like this is currently the O3 test, okay? You have the this is actually the multi-subject breakdown of this. But look at this breakdown of the old test for a multi-subject. This test right here, notice that each one of these sections is evenly divided, and then you have 10% on the essay. This structure on the old test allowed you to, let's say, find an area that you had a strength in. Let's say you had a strength in language arts and score high here. And what that would do is it would offset another area where you were so-so or weak. So let's say you struggled in history. So if you had a strength here and you had a weakness here, you know, because of the way it was structured, your strength could totally offset your weakness because they're both weighted equally. And so in a lot of ways, you know, this was, you could pass this test by really working your strength and doing your best on your weakness, and you'd still average out to a passing score. And that essay was only 10%, so that hasn't changed. But the way it was balanced off, you could pass with the strength, and that would offset an area that you really had a weakness in. Now, this is the old test. The new test breaks it down very differently. What the new test is going to do is you're going to go from 100 questions on both exams to a collective 60, 120 questions. Now, team, that is a 20 question or 20% increase in the questions. So right away, team, if you compare the O3 test that has a total 100 questions, when you add up all the language arts, science, history, and math, and compared to the new 78, you have 20% more questions. That's a giant difference in these exams. Let that sink in a little bit. You're going to have to do 20% more. Now, maybe you want to do 20% more. I don't know, but that's a lot. How about this one right here? I wanted to compare these and show you this. When you go to the objectives of these exams, now I'm comparing the objectives on the O3 test, and then I'll do the 78. And you look at the objectives, and I put this in a word count just so you would see. This starts with the math, and in this one right here, this 2,575 words includes the objectives for the math subtest, as well as the multi-subject test, which includes, ELA, science, and history. And all that objectives adds up to 2,574 words, right? Now, I did the same for the new 78. Look how much more there is in this test they want you to know. This is the 78. Now, this includes the way they break down the exams is you're going to have a math plus science, and you're going to have a history plus ELA. So what they're doing in this new test is they're combining the math and science and the history and ELA. But just as before, you add up all the objectives. This is twice the length, 5,100 words. Okay, so look at that, team. You're going from objectives. This is like what they want you to know, and they're doubling what they want you to know. That's a lot. Team, this not only has 20% more questions, but it's got double the content that you need to know. Wow. So team, 03, 78, this new one's going to have twice the content. And it's not just twice the content, the questions are going to be wordier. You can see that in the objectives. I want you to look at this objective here. It's the first one for math. This is on the current test, the 03. And it's the first math objective, and it says, understand the number system and the concept of place value. So we think of the number system here, base 10 numbers, and the concept of place value, ones, tens, hundreds. That's the first concept. And then it has a bunch of sub-objectives. Now let's look at the first, major idea in the new exam for math. It says here, applying number theory, structures of numeration systems and operations, arithmetic properties to the real number system using standards for mathematical practice. Each one of those are very specific, and this is much wordier, right? We have to have ideas on number theory, structures of numeration systems. So that means like base 10, base 2, base 3, base 5. We have to have an awareness of operations. We have to know those properties. We have to work with real numbers as opposed to just rational numbers. We're going to introduce, real numbers and expand it out a little bit with rational and irrational. And then we have to use standards for mathematical practice, which is a very specific thing. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is even the objectives here are wordier. Can you see that? So we're not just doubling the amount that they want you to know, but the language that they're using is going to be more complicated. Team, there's other ways we could break this down, and I could show you how they break down the math, science, and the language arts and history. There's other details, a lot more. But I think that, if I did that, you might lose sight of the big picture, all right? Yes, you will not have to do as much math in this new version, okay? Phew. Well, you won't have as many math questions. This new one will only have 32 math questions and 28 science questions and technology questions. So in one way, you might say that's good, but team, they still doubled the content. The expectation has not gone away. Okay, these things still remain the same. Every test has 20% more questions. And the amount of content that they want you to know, the stuff that they want you to know, has literally doubled. The word complexity has doubled. They're going to get wordier questions. So team, this is a big deal, okay? And so I need you to think about that. And I got one more thing for you, okay? I need you to think about what's going to happen if you don't pass this current O3 test, okay? So this tells you what will happen if you've only passed one of the exams by August 21st, 2023. So listen to this. If you've passed, let's say you passed the multi-subject, but you still have, unfortunately, not passed the O3. Now, I'm teaching a class right now, and there's a lot of math teachers listening to this video that are in that class. And they're in this spot where they passed the multi-subject, the first subtest, but they haven't passed the math subtest. Okay, maybe that's you that's listening to this video now. Well, this is going to be your option come August 21st, 2023. You're going to have to take this new math and science test. Remember, 20% more questions, and it's 2 times the content. You could do that, okay? Or you could take this harder Math 68 test, harder math. Or you could take this even harder middle school math test, the mtel 65, even harder math. Or you could take the even ridiculous, it's actually not that hard, but a harder 63 high school test. No one's going to want to do that, team, right? I mean, if you got to pass a math test, out of all these options, 68, 65, 63, the O3 is still the easiest by far, by a mile in terms of math. So honestly, team, for teachers out there that, want to get this math test done, these options aren't real options. They're harder options than this current test. So it makes sense now to double down and pass this current test. Who hears me? And the last one is math and science. That's even a harder version of the 78 exam. So the 78 exam is math and science, okay, but that's the harder version of this. So there's no sense in doing that. So really by default, they give you 5 options, right? But at the end of the day, this is harder than that, this is harder than that, and this is harder than all of them. You see what I mean? So now is the time, if you've passed this, now's the time to pass this exam, because all these options here are going to be harder. Okay, now let's look at the other side. What if you've passed the math, but have not passed the multi-subject? Frowny town there. What do you do then? Well, if you haven't passed the multi-subject, you're going to have to take 2 tests. Because those 2 tests are going to have to include the history piece and the science piece. Nobody wants that. That's like, I have another test for you, 2 exams that are really hard, or you could take these 2 right here. If you pass, this is really, you're really in trouble. If you've passed the math, but not the multi-subject. If you haven't passed the multi-subject, what are you doing? You should spend the summer passing that exam, because otherwise you're going to have to take these 2 new exams, or these 2 exams, or these 2 exams. Team, or these 3 exams. Team, there's no way around it. I can't say the language because I don't want to be rude. If you don't pass this test, you're in big trouble, okay? Because the option come August 21st, 2023 is to take 2 or 3 exams to fill in the gaps. And team, that is a giant frowny town. Team, I don't know what to say. This is not new. This is not new news. Maybe you're hearing it for the first time, but they've announced this for a long time. Remember, we've had this stuff on the radar since 2020 and earlier than that. But really, 2020, 2021, I mean, this has been out there for a long time. And now it's come. It's coming. It'll be here. Maybe it is here when you're watching the video. We are totally restructuring all the classes to work with these new exams. These new exams, because they have so much more content, there's so much more. We're going, look at the content. Double the amount of ideas they want you to know. The new classes will be totally structured differently to address and cover all this new content. But right now, if you're hearing me, if you can hear me now, Team, listen. Time to pass. I should write down now. Now is the time to pass. Now's the time to finish these exams. Whether that's the current 03 test, the math, or the multi-subject. You need to pass these tests now, because what's coming down the track is something that's much harder. And you know what, team? The way it's been timed, where this change is going to happen, when does it say again? August 21st. Team, in terms of school, if you're a teacher listening to this, you know what that means. This is the start of the new school year. And we're right now in the old school year. And nobody is thinking about the new school year because you're trying to finish the old school year, right? So this isn't even on anyone's radar because they're like, hey, I got to finish the school year and take a rest because it's been a tough year. And what's going to happen is you're not even going to know about this change until it's too late, until the first week of school. And it's going to hit you like a bunch of bricks. It's going to be the first week of school, back from summer break, filled with energy, and someone's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, Chris, you got to take this new test. And you'll be like, what? Don't be like that teacher that's like, what? Know that it's coming, okay? Know that it's going to be harder, okay? That's just the reality. Don't shy away from it. Maybe if you're hearing this message now, you can try and pass these tests now. Maybe you can try and double down on this current exam right now, okay? This multi-subject or the math. I think that's the way to go. That's the way I would do it. I would try and pass this now. Do it now. Double down on your studies, okay? 4 hours for the math, 4 hours for the multi-subject. Try and get this stuff done because what's coming down the track is much more. And guess what? We can deal with that later. We can deal with that in August when the new year starts. Gohacademy is going to have a whole bunch of new classes. But if you're hearing me now, I'm posting this on Memorial Day. You have 3 months to get this thing done. Please get it done, okay? All right, team. I hope this helps. I hope you have a better idea of what's coming down the track. And I hope that you can keep in mind, now's the time to pass this test so you don't have to deal with this test here, okay? All right, team. I hope this helped with information on the new mtel.78. I'll do other videos on this, but honestly, this is going to be around for the next 10 years for a while. So over time, you'll get to know this test, and we'll expand and do a lot more with this test. But for now, if there's a way to avoid it, try to, okay? Because nobody wants to do double the work, double the content, okay? All right, team. Everyone, have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye, team.